There is a list. You don't know you're on it, but it exists. And the most powerful organizations in the world update that list every day. I'm not talking about science fiction. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. I'm talking about a documented, audited, publicly funded system that operates silently while you sleep. A system that knows where you live, what you buy, what you search for, who you talk to, what you're afraid of losing. And it uses all of that, in real time, to influence what you think is your decision. But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is this. The people who build this system aren't movie villains. They're engineers, economists, behavioral scientists with PhDs from elite universities, people who go home, have dinner with their families, sleep well, and who built, piece by piece, the most sophisticated influence infrastructure humanity has ever created. Without anyone voting for it, without anyone approving it, without anyone asking your permission. And the strangest thing of all, part of this infrastructure is completely legal. It's in the terms of service that you accepted without reading. So in the next few minutes, I'm not going to show you theories. I'm going to show you documents, contracts, registered patents, testimonials from former employees that cost them their careers. And at the end of this video, you'll understand why certain questions never come up in public debates. Not because they're impossible to ask, but because those who could ask them have already been bought, silenced, or replaced by someone more cooperative. There's a theory, and I need you to pay attention to the word theory, called invisible choice architecture. It's not a new term. It was coined in 2008 by economists Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein in the book Nudge, published by Yale University. The central idea is simple. The environment in which you make decisions determines your decisions more than your will. Thaler won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017 for this work. That's a fact. What is not widely discussed, and here we enter the territory of evidence-supported hypothesis, is the extent to which this theory has been appropriated by governments and corporations to build systems of influence that operate without informed consent. Systems that don't prohibit you from choosing. They just make certain choices almost impossible to make. Now comes the detail that shouldn't exist. In 2014, Facebook conducted a psychological experiment on 689,000 users, without warning, without asking for consent. It manipulated these people's feeds to show predominantly negative or predominantly positive content for an entire week. The goal was to verify if emotions could be induced on a large scale through content curation. The result confirmed that they could. The experiment was published in the scientific journal PNAS, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a respected academic publication, not a blog, not a forum, a scientific journal. So this is not speculation. It is a documented, peer-reviewed experiment conducted by one of the largest companies in the world on nearly 700,000 people who didn't know they were guinea pigs. Wait a minute. If this was published in 2014 in a scientific journal, what are they doing now, 10 years later, with 10 times the infrastructure and artificial intelligence models that no regulator in the world fully understands? I went looking for that answer, and what I found was more disturbing than the Facebook experiment. In 2018, the Cambridge Analytica case came to light. You've probably heard the name, but most people don't know the technical details of what happened. It wasn't a simple data leak. It was the systematic application of a psychographic model called OCEAN, which maps human personality across 5 dimensions: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, to create individual profiles of 87 million people and deliver to each of them political messages specifically calibrated to their points of psychological vulnerability. 87 million people. Individual profiles, messages calibrated to specific vulnerabilities. Christopher Wiley, former research director of Cambridge Analytica, described this in testimony to the British Parliament as warfare by other means. Sworn testimony. With full name. Broadcast live to the world. And what happened next? Mark Zuckerberg paid a $5 billion fine to the American FTC. $5 billion. The largest fine in FTC history up to that point. And he continued operating. And it was precisely at that point that I understood I was looking at the wrong problem. I'm going to separate fact from hypothesis because you deserve this distinction. Facts: Facebook's experiment on 689,000 users happened and was published in 2014 in PNAS. Cambridge Analytica created psychographic profiles of 87 million people, confirmed by parliamentary testimony. Facebook paid a $5 billion fine to the FTC in 2019. The OCEAN model exists, is scientifically validated, and is used commercially. Richard Thaler won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017 for his work on choice architecture. hypotheses supported by circumstantial evidence, that systems similar to the one used by Cambridge Analytica operate today on a much larger scale and with much more sophisticated technology, without effective regulatory oversight. Speculation without solid evidence, that there is centralized and deliberate coordination between governments and corporations to control global political narratives in a unified way. Now think about the consequences of what you just saw. If in 2014 it was possible to manipulate the emotions of 700,000 people through feed curation, and in 2018 it was possible to create individual psychographic profiles of 87 million people and deliver messages calibrated to specific vulnerabilities, what is possible to do today with language models that generate personalized content in real time, with recommendation systems that know your behavior patterns better than you do, with micro-targeting tools that can segment not by city, not by neighborhood, but by block, by time slot, by emotional state inferred from typing patterns. I'm not speculating about the future. I'm describing capabilities that already exist, have already been patented, have already been documented in academic articles. The question is not whether this is possible. The question is who decides how it is used. And the answer to that question is what nobody is discussing. I know what you might be thinking right now. This is too big. I'm an ordinary person. What do I have that's interesting to be targeted by this? And here's the point where most people get it completely wrong. You are not targeted because you are important. You are targeted because you are part of a pattern. Systems of influence at scale don't work by targeting individuals. They work by identifying patterns of collective behavior and pushing those patterns millimeters a day in specific directions. You don't notice because each individual push is too small to be detected. But added up over months and years, these pushes determine what you consider normal, what you consider extreme, who you trust, who you fear, what you think you chose on your own. It's not about you specifically. It's about the version of you they want to exist. But there is a question that no one is asking, and that question changes everything. The question is not, are they manipulating us? That question has already been answered, with documents, with billion-dollar fines, with parliamentary testimonies. The question that no one asks is this: if the tools to do this exist, are legal, are profitable, and have no effective regulation, why would anyone choose not to use them? Think about market logic. A company that uses psychological manipulation on a large scale converts more, retains more, and profits more. A company that chooses not to use it loses to the competitor that does. This is not conspiracy theory. It's basic game theory. The structural incentive is for the maximum use of these tools, and the disincentive, which are the fines and regulations, is systematically insufficient. $5 billion for Facebook was equivalent to about 1 month of revenue. 1 month of revenue. In October 2021, Frances Haugen went to the U.S. Congress with 20,000 internal Facebook documents that she had copied before leaving the company. Documents that showed that the company knew that Instagram caused harm to the mental health of teenagers, especially girls. He knew that his algorithms amplified hate speech and misinformation because that content generated more engagement. He knew that his own internal research contradicted his public statements. 20,000 documents, sworn testimony, broadcast live to the world. And what happened? Zuckerberg was called to testify. He gave evasive answers. U.S. senators demonstrated that they didn't understand how the algorithm worked, and Facebook changed its name to Meta and continued operating. Frances Haugen said in that testimony a phrase that was recorded but that almost no one quoted afterward. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people. The leadership knows how to make it safer. They choose not to, because the profit is greater. And then I understood. The question was never whether they know. The question is that they know, they documented it, they calculated the cost, they calculated the profit, and they chose the profit, with full knowledge of the damage. So what do you do with that? First, understand that attention is the most valuable resource of the 21st century. Every minute you spend on a platform is revenue for that platform. You are not the user. You are the product. Second, the algorithm doesn't show you what is true. It shows you what keeps you on the platform. Indignation retains more than happiness. Fear retains more than security. If you feel anger every time you open a social network, that's not a coincidence. It's design. Third, informed consent doesn't exist in these systems. You accepted terms of service from hundreds of pages that nobody reads, that change without notice, and that authorize uses you would never approve if you understood what you were authorizing. Fourth, effective regulation doesn't yet exist. Regulatory bodies are decades behind the technology they are trying to regulate. This is not incompetence. It's a deliberate speed of innovation that surpasses regulatory capacity. You don't need to delete all your social media accounts. You don't need to become a digital hermit. You need one thing: intentional friction. Every time you're about to react to something that has generated strong emotion in you, indignation, fear, anger, pause for 3 seconds and ask, who benefits if I believe this now? Who wins if I share this now? It's not a paranoid question. It's a question from an informed consumer in a market where the product is your attention and your belief. Intentional friction doesn't eliminate manipulation, but it drastically reduces its effectiveness. Because these systems are calibrated for speed of reaction, they need you to react before you think. 3 seconds destroy the model. So what do they know and will never tell you? They know you are predictable, that your fears follow patterns, that your hopes follow patterns, that under enough emotional pressure you make decisions that you would never make in a calm state. They know that the environment in which you receive information determines what you will believe more than the content of the information itself. They know that on a sufficient scale, truth and lies become equivalent if the lie arrives first and is repeated frequently enough. And they know that most people, upon discovering this, will feel a moment of indignation, will share this video, will think I need to change, and in 48 hours will be back in the same loop. Because the system was designed precisely for this: to absorb resistance, to transform critical awareness into just another piece of content to be consumed and forgotten. This is the question that will stay with you after this video ends. Will you be just another statistic confirming that resistance lasts 48 hours? Or will you be the exception that the model cannot predict?